There is an old saying that no one enters the temple. There are two theories about this. One is because of a crappy temple in the middle of nowhere. Could easily become a shelter for bandits or rebels. If you go in there alone, you're gonna blow the dog. Another theory is because he built many temples. It's not for the right god. A long time ago, there is a carpenter named Li Zomping in our village. Carpentry is a strange profession. He has a good position in the village but little income. So Li Zomping's life has been bitter, haha. That day, Li Zomping sat on the stool in the store as usual. Someone from the neighboring village came to inform him that old Mrs. Liu had passed away. This old Mrs. Liu has no children and is down and out. There's not even a body to pick up. But he was kind to Li Zomping in his early years. Li Zomping by his care has become a lot of kindness. So he's in charge of Mrs. Liu's funeral. The old man was in his 70s, a long life in those days. Li Zomping had expected this. Pulled a scooter from the yard. He left with a coffin in tow. He made the coffin himself. Li Zomping walked for several hours to Mrs. Liu's house. All that's missing is a corner of the table. A few broken benches and a bed away. No furniture at all. Lying on the bed, Mrs. Liu's face was already livid. You can't afford to do business. The neighbors huddled together. Gave Li Zomping some money. It's a gesture. It wasn't easy for everyone in those days. As long as you can do that. Li Zomping took the money. Bought a cemetery for Mrs. Liu. A lot of people think the old dead were gouged coffins. Just dig a hole in the ground and bury it. Not so easy. There's a fee for burying people. Many poor people cannot afford cemeteries. That is, rolled up on a broken mat and dumped in a mass grave. So there will be some prostitution. This kind of behavior. Li Zomping's money. Cemeteries that are rarely available for purchase are also on the wrong side of the spectrum. But you can rest in the ground. Put the body of Liu Tai in the coffin. Li Zomping dragged the scooter to the countryside. But it's still a big coffin. He didn't make it to the cemetery until dark. Walking at night is a long life. Not to mention the three thieves, Jiao Lang alone would have given him a jug. Li Zomping thought about finding a place to hide. It's a coincidence. There's another temple near here. Looks like it's been abandoned for a long time. It's empty and full of cobwebs. Only one tribute table. And a headless statue 3 meters high. It's a very strange statue with a red and blue face and 6 hands. With a trident in one hand. The other 5 hands are the viscera, heart, liver, spleen, lungs and kidneys. There's a scene painted on the back of the bullet. A knight forked through a man into the stars and cut him with a belly knife. And a pan of boiling, bubbling oil. Li Zomping just took a look and immediately began to retire. I don't know what this headless idol is. But it can't be good, can it? Within a few steps there was a howl in the woods. Let Li Zomping panic. Back to the ruined temple. Compared to this mythical Edo. Well, then obviously wolves are a bigger threat. The only good news is that the doors and windows are fairly sturdy. It's a little loose in a few places. But Li Zomping is a carpenter. It quickly solidifies. At least there's no fear of wolves coming in. But he's not taking it lightly. Until the howling died down in the middle of the night. I dare to go to sleep. But Li Zomping didn't sleep long before he felt a little colder. My hands and feet were colder. He got up to see if there was a leak. And then I heard banging on the door. What animal was Li Zomping's first reaction? He moved closer to the window to make a small crack. The results haven't arrived yet. A furry one popped out of the curtain. Hands like a monkey's. But a lot bigger. More than twice the size of Li Zomping's hand. The sudden change made him jump. One lost his footing and Li Zomping fell to the ground. The crash outside the door grew louder and louder. There's a lot of dust coming down from the walls. Li Zomping knew the strength of the doors and windows. I don't care about it anymore and it all collapses. The cat stayed in the curtain and kept reaching forward. There's a lot of dust coming down from the window. Looks like he's about to tear out the whole window. Li Zomping knew the strength of the window. I don't care about it anymore and it collapses. I don't have the right tools around to look for. The only thing that's reliable is the hoe that's going to dig the hole. Pick him up. Li Zomping smashed his hand against the window. Don't underestimate the fact that the hoe is unopened. But a hoe struggles on anyone and you can see bones. Li Zomping struggled to swing. He cried out in pain. Then he grabbed the handle of the hoe and swung it harder. Li Zomping, who was pulling the hoe, was thrown by him. Hit the wall. Li Zomping fainted directly. When he woke up again, it was noon the next day. The sun shone through large holes in the window. On his face. He struggled to get up and found some numbness in his legs. What surprised him more was why he was okay last night. The hoe had broken in two. That's proof of the monster's ferocity. He seems to have no reason to spare himself. He turned back. Found old Mrs. Liu's coffin in tattered condition. It's got a couple more paw prints on it. Li Zomping had a hunch that he would survive. Maybe it has something to do with Mrs. Liu. This temple is a temple of evil. There's not even room for a car. That altar is for the third life. Regular worship of the surrounding villages will not be harmed. Except when there's a ceremony. No one comes here the rest of the time. But Li Zomping didn't know that. Did he dare not enter any temple after this?